Hello and welcome to our webinar series, Straight from the Horse's Mouth, Insights from Experts in 30 Minutes. My name is Jeff Vickers from ThinkStep and I'll be your host for the next half hour. Today we'll focus on how organisations can meet increasing demand for both lifecycle thinking and lifecycle assessment by building up internal capacity. Our expert today is Ricky Bridge, General Manager, Environmental Operations at Downer Group, who will discuss Downer's perspective on lifecycle assessment. Over to you, Ricky.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, and thanks for inviting me to present today. I guess the overview is the brief from Jeff was to give a bit of an overview of Downer's involvement with the LCA and just give the Downer perspective in terms of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going with it. So just before I start doing that, I guess I'll give everyone a bit of a background into Downer as a company. We largely operate in Australia and New Zealand, but we do have operations globally. And we are broken up into 6 sectors, being transport services, rail, utility services, technology communication services, engineering, construction and maintenance, and mining. So as you can see, we're a very diverse, multidisciplinary engineering contracting organisation, but more importantly, we're moving into more of we see ourselves more as a service provider to our customers. So where did LCA all begin with Downer? I guess in terms of my experience, and I've been working for Downer for about 8.5 years now, there's been a strong business appetite within our transport or our road surfacing businesses, both within Australia and New Zealand. And where that really came from was to innovate our road surfacing products with different mix designs and waste-derived raw material replacements. And this is, I guess, about maintaining our competitiveness in the marketplace and also working with our customers and coming up with more sustainable products, such as here in Australia we have Toner Pave, which we'll talk about, as well as 99% recycled asphalt and some other road surfacing products like Toner Seal. In addition to that, the New Zealand business was also looking and doing LCA assessment and looking at the impacts or the carbon impacts around cutback bitumen versus emulsions. And I guess within all of this work, it's known that if you reduce the bitumen content in any road surfacing product, you'll significantly reduce the CO2 emissions. But the LCA now provides us with a tool that enables us to demonstrate that and show where those savings can be made and where we can have our most value for money in terms of driving those changes. There is a link there, which is a link to our Toner Pave video, which is some early work that we did with Fuji Xerox, Close the Loop. And that was around, again, taking the toner waste product from Fuji and using that as a bitumen binder replacement in our asphalt products. And we work closely with Close the Loop to do that. So there's a nice little animated video demonstration. If you click on that link, we tried to do it earlier. It's not going to probably work the best over the webinar. So feel free to take that down, or I can send that to you, and or just Google it, and you'll be able to take a look at that. So really, this is where the very start, the origins of moving into an LCA in Downer with its products originated. So what were some of the internal drivers of that? Well, in Downer, we have at a corporate level energy savings KPIs. So back in 2012, 2013, all the divisions were required to set a 5-year energy savings plan with targets, and those targets were to be based on a 30% reduction over the 5-year period, going from 2013 through to 2019. So we're halfway or more than halfway through that now, and we're seeing some great energy savings and innovation that's been coming out of that, which is generating real value and dollar savings to the business. On top of that, we have at corporate level, we have a zero harm management system framework, and that sets the minimum requirements from a governance point of view for all of our divisions in what it is they are to do. And we've been able to incorporate in our element 7, which is suppliers, contractors and materials management, the product life cycle, or taking into consideration the product life cycle within decision making in that as a minimum requirement or a performance requirement. And why we do that is because we obviously want to lower our risk, we want to improve our environmental performance, increase efficiencies, lower our wastage, and also our production costs. The other thing was too, there was a bit of I guess within the road surfacing business, there was the increase in, I guess, exposure and availability around green labels and environmental product declarations. And this was something that was of interest to our business, and it's something that they wanted to look at. And obviously to go down that path, it all starts with an LCA. So hence, that was another internal driver why we wanted to go down and start building some capability with lifecycle assessment. Our external drivers, well, as we all are all seeing, I guess over the last couple of years, there's been a huge increase in demand for LCAs and EPDs, and that's mainly been driven by our customers. So, for example, Downer. At the time we were looking at this, we were bidding for three of the largest rail rolling stock passenger train projects in Australia, being the New Inner City Fleet, the HCMT and the SCT train projects. Now, every single one of those contracts, whether it be Transport for New South Wales or the Public Transport Victoria, had a contractual requirement in there, and I've just taken an excerpt from one of the Transport for New South Wales contracts, which was around the supplier must produce an ISO 14025 environmental product declaration for the sets and comply with the requirements of the UNCPC 495 rolling stock product category rules. So when our organisation starts seeing this, and we knew that this was coming through in those contractual requirements, this becomes a real game changer, because rather than trying to push an LCA product, you've got the pull from the client. So that was a really good external driver that helped support our business case in being able to invest in Gabi and going down the line of LCA. Another driver was the fact that not only governments were picking up the sustainability rating tools, but Downer had a heavy involvement in ISCA from a voluntary ratings perspective, as well as a contractual or client requirement. Downer is not exposed too much to the GBCA, but we also, I understand through the GBCA, there is also LCA requirements within that rating tool, and also too within the Transport for New South Wales Sustainable Design Guidelines. Within their materials theme, there's an LCA element to that as well. Coupled with all that, Downer was also, I guess, like many of our organisations, going through and having our IMS Integrated Management System recertified to the ISO 14001:2015 standard. And if anyone's gone down that path, element 8.1 requires organisations to take into consideration the upstream and downstream impacts of your products and services, and essentially apply life cycle thinking. Late last year, Downer was able to achieve its certification in the 2015 standard, and the Gabi LCA tool and Envision was one of the evidence that we're able to provide to demonstrate how Downer had gone down this path and could meet that requirement. So that was another good external driver that was able to demonstrate value in getting that recertification. Another big driver for Downer is we have a strong culture of building internal capability. So often there is a reluctancy to want to go and get or rely on external parties and consultants to provide services for us. Even though we still need that from time to time, there is still a strong culture in building internal capability. So as a service provider and support service to our broader business on environment sustainability, we saw this as an opportunity to extend our service offering and be able to demonstrate tangible value to the operations of our business. We also saw this as an ability to reduce cost. So with what I spoke about before, with increasing demand, as we're doing more LCAs, we'll need less reliance on external consultants, and we'll be able to use our internal capability to be able to do the LCAs for each of our products and services that we're required to do or that we choose to do. We talked about customers adopting sustainability rating tools. We also wanted to develop knowledge and skills for environment sustainability professionals within the business. So we saw this as another opportunity to be able to broaden their expertise. By bringing that in-house capability into Downer, we also have, it also provides us with the ability to provide that ownership engagement with the operational team so that they're directly connected with the LCA in relation to the products that they manage or that they design. Often when you go and get an external consultant, it can sometimes be a bit of a remove from that process. So we saw that as a huge advantage internally in Downer, and that's another reason why we want to build that in-house capability. Not to mention, you get informed decision making. So by us being able to use the tool and clearly show by playing with the variables or, replacing some of the inputs or substituting inputs or doing things in a different way or better, it helped the Gabi Envision and LCA tool helps us to be able to show those impacts and show where the benefits are. And that helps to drive a lot of other operational excellence that we have within the business. So where to from here? For Downer, it's about continuing to deliver on our contractual obligations with what I mentioned in the previous slides, continue to use the LCA and the Gabi tool to innovate our products and lower our carbon emissions, and ultimately for the business reduce costs. Use the LCAs to pursue green labels and EPDs to provide market customer assurance and market differentiation. A lot of our customers in the road surfacing business, they value receiving a certificate that shows them by using this type of asphalt product how much CO2 or how much carbon that has saved them in their road network. Using the LCAs and going down the line of a green label or an EPD gives us that ability to confidently, to have some rigour behind the statements that we're making. We also would like to, we will continue to promote the Gabi LCA tool across other sectors of Downer. And so I guess whilst we've started in the road surfacing business and we've now seen that transition across into our rail division with the passenger trains, there are many other opportunities where we can start to integrate LCA into other parts of the Downer business. And last but not least, but we'll continue to upskill and use the LCA and train our environment sustainability professionals and provide them with that expertise. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your presentation, Ricky. I thought you provided a great overview of the internal and external drivers for Downer and how you're adopting LCA internally. I'm now going to discuss how to use software tools to help your organization bring lifecycle assessment in-house. While there's been a lot of discussion in the media at the moment about software and automation putting people out of work, I think the opposite can also be true. I believe that software can enable your organization to achieve more, to help your people to go further by building on the work and the LCA work in particular that you've already done, extending this out to cover your whole product portfolio, presenting it in a way that's easy to use by key stakeholders, and essentially just packaging it up and bringing it all together in one place. Put another way, I believe that software can automate repetitive tasks and free up your time to make better informed decisions. I want to address two common perceptions through this presentation. Firstly, that LCAs necessarily take a lot of time to complete, cost a lot of money, and produce reports that no one can understand. And secondly, that streamlined LCAs are low quality. While it's true that LCA can be very detail heavy, it's also possible, in my view, to create simple tools that have a significant amount of detail behind them, but that complexity is hidden within a black box and still usable for decision makers. The challenge we often face when using LCA for decision making is that there is an apparent conflict between the timeliness of the results that you receive and the accuracy of those results. There's no use having a perfect answer if it's too late to act on, and similarly, an answer that's surrounded by a huge degree of uncertainty is almost as bad as no answer at all. This creates a challenge for your organization. How do you get good quality information out to key people, be they management, marketing, product design, procurement, or even external stakeholders, quickly enough for them to make an informed decision? And the way this issue is solved within the Gabi software suite is by having two separate tools. Firstly, Gabi Professional, which sits with your in-house lifecycle assessment experts, and secondly, Gabi Envision, which is a web-based platform for everyone else. Essentially, Gabi Envision is a software platform for running apps that are created within the Gabi Professional tool. These apps are there and designed to solve specific LCA problems. They allow users to adjust key parameters such as electricity or scrap rates or anything like that, and to see results and produce reports in real time. You're effectively building your own black box and allowing users to tweak the inputs to that black box and then see changes in the results as an outcome. To give an example, you might create an app to produce a customer-specific environmental declaration, like an environmental product declaration or EPD, that takes into account the mix of products that customer buys, the distance the products that they've purchased travel to them, and how they are likely to use and dispose of those products. You might also create apps to help your product designers choose better performing materials, or an educational app to help build a greater level of understanding within your organization. I now want to switch over to a quick demo of Gabi Envision to show you a relatively basic lifecycle assessment for a bridge. I've just picked a bridge as a case study to link in with Downer. Really, you could be creating an app for anything. So I just want to switch across to the Envision platform now. As you can see, you log in through your web browser. It's password protected so that you can, protect confidential information. You put in your username and password and select login. And basically, what this does is bring up a platform where there are the apps that I mentioned. You can see there are a range of different folders that have loaded up. We want to focus today on this webinar folder, and you can see inside here that there are a few different apps. The first one is the bridge lifecycle, which is the example that we want to cover. The next two are the backpack and bottle example, which are just two other random examples that you might be interested in. I want to start by opening up that bridge lifecycle and basically showing you a sort of quick walkthrough of how Gabi Envision works. So to do that, we basically click the open button here. And what you see when this loads up is a series of parameters. So I'm just going to open up a couple of them quickly to give you an idea. You see here, firstly, a concrete mix. Secondly, you've got some options with inside each of these parameters here for reinforced concrete and structural steel. Basically, what the first group of parameters is doing is allow you to specify the concrete mix that you use within your reinforced concrete. So you can take different strength grades of steel from a drop-down menu. Here we've got two different types. You can take different blends of cement to gravel to sand to water to create the different concrete mixes that you want to use in any given project. You can see that there are two different scenarios. They're represented in the columns here. There's bridge A1 and bridge A2, very creatively named, I know. And basically these are two different design scenarios that allow you to make a comparison. So what we're seeing here is these two different options for the same bridge. If you click across in this tables and charts pull out on the right here, you'll see Gabi loading up a series of predefined charts and tables that have been created within the main Gabi Professional tool and made available for use within Gabi Envision. So the first one here is showing the global warming potential or carbon footprint of the two bridge alternatives over all life cycle stages. And what you can see is, if you sort of scroll over these things, they're broken down by stage. So the lowest bar in the dark blue is your concrete, and then you've got your reinforcing steel, your structural steel, and so on and so forth. You can see by this, assuming that these bridges are functionally equivalent, that bridge A2 currently has the lower carbon footprint of the two. What you can now do is you can make changes to these parameters and see the results in real time. So for example, if we manage to, say, adjust our bridge so that we manage to lightweight it and reduce the amount of concrete down to 300, and maybe in this case, something's got worse and we need actually more steel, so I'm going to put 200 here. You can see Gabi's telling you, what it used to be, what it is now. And basically what you can do is click this refresh button to see the results update. And this will take a few moments because there's a full lifecycle assessment model being recalculated in the background. And basically what it's doing is running a full sort of assessment, recalculating all the results, and then repopulating these charts, and also a full report which is available to download as a PDF, which I'll show as a second step. Effectively, it's just doing all those calculations in the background to get you your updated results. And what you can see here is now we've switched, we've made improvements in one design, and we've made things get worse in the other. And you can see that now there's a blue bar here indicating that things have changed. You can also pop out other things. There's tables here, for example. You're seeing before and after in the blue versus the black. And there's other charts that you can see here too. So there's another one here for looking at different environmental impact categories and the relative contribution from each. So what you can see here is we're looking at carbon footprint, we're looking at ozone depletion, acidification, eutrophication, summer smog, depletion of fossil fuels, and also of minerals. And you can see quite quickly here that your reinforcing steel, which is this light blue, is contributing quite a significant share, and also your structural steel is contributing a significant share too. So it gives you quite a good insight quite quickly into these key sort of environmental issues. You can also pop out here a PDF preview to see the results inside the report in real time too. I might just make this a bit bigger by finding the right part of this option here, and basically it's going to load up a full PDF report, and you'll see that these charts are also the same, sort of similar to what we were seeing before. If we want to show the updated results here too, we also have to click the recalculate, and that's going to, what it's showing at the moment is the default settings that we loaded up, and basically now it's going to load up a new set of results for us in this report. It's showing you a preview here at the moment, but you can also export and download that preview. So to do that, you click the download button here, and that pops it out in your web browser, sorry, in your PDF viewer. So coming back here and just collapsing this away for now, basically what this is a full lifecycle assessment model designed for any product that you want to model. So in this case a bridge, but it could equally be a backpack or the built environment of a whole country or a mobile phone or anything you want. And you basically, your expert team are controlling the parameters or the key variables that the user can change, and they're also controlling the outputs that the user can see. So what charts, what tables can they see and in what format, and how does that report look out the other end. And you can have as many of these different apps as you want. So I'm just going to flick back across now to give you an idea of what's behind this. So to offer you a peek inside that black box and show you the underlying Gabi model. So I'm going into the main Gabi professional software now and showing you the bridge lifecycle that is behind that, that model there. So what you can see here is what's called a Gabi plan system, and this is essentially like a process flow diagram of the lifecycle of the bridge. And what you can see on the left is your key input materials like your concrete, reinforced steel, and structural steel. That's being transported, to different locations. In this case, it's we're making up some reinforced concrete by taking concrete and reinforcing steel, and we're also then building our bridge. That bridge not only requires materials, but it also requires some machinery to assemble, and it requires some machinery to excavate out soil that's not needed. Finally, once the bridge is built, it needs to be maintained over potentially quite a long period of time, maybe say 100 years. Here we've just got more concrete coming in to support it over its life. And then finally, once the bridge is not needed anymore, it's deconstructed and the materials are split out. And what you can see here is sort of steel and concrete leaving the system. The steel, you can see a loop back. This is kind of representing your cradle-to-cradle system, where effectively, the output steel from one system is going and feeding another. Here it's shown as just a straight closed loop, but that's really a simplification of reality. But the point is that this is a lifecycle assessment model that sits behind your more sort of simplistic, or perhaps easier to use would be a better way of saying it, easy to use front end in Gabi and Vision. And so, this is actually a relatively simple model in Gabi terms. What you might actually create in the Gabi professional software could be a lot more detailed than this, but from the user perspective, they can still have a very small number of parameters, a very simple to use interface, and they can make decisions based on that. So just want to pop back to my slides quickly and finish those off before I wrap up and we take questions. So just moving back to the slides, effectively, basically what I wanted to show is just quickly the connection between the two. So there's effectively two things that you need to create this interface between Gabi Professional and Gabi Envision. And they're the same components of Gabi Professional that you'd use anyway. So the two things are, firstly, Gabi Parameter Explorer, which is this interface here, which basically is the same parameters that you see within Gabi Envision. It's basically a way of controlling your entire model in one place, so you can have a bill of quantities or bill of materials set up in one place together with your other lifecycle stages like maintenance and end of life, all in one window, and basically have your different scenarios represented in the columns, as you can see here. And that enables you to basically model as many different scenarios as you want using the same cookie cutter model over and over again. So you can have one bridge that you use to basically model as many bridges as you like. The next feature of Gabi Professional that ties over into Gabi Envision is this interactive reporting interface, where you basically set up a report template, which is what you see here on the right, and that's basically got text, charts, tables, and all of that stuff updates in real time. So with those two items in place, it's only a few clicks to take an app, which you can go through, database export and a Gabi model file, as it's called, and then basically import that into the Gabi Envision web interface via simple drag and drop, and you've got a new app inside Gabi. You can then control which users can see what. So if you've got the marketing team, you want them to see one set of apps, and the product design team to see another, then you can easily control that if you've got administrator rights to the system. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. To sum up, I wanted to just basically say that software tools can help to empower your staff, enabling them to have greater influence within your organization. They're not just there to replace people, they're there to enable your people to do more and to basically automate those repetitive tasks so that your staff can really kind of go further and penetrate further into the organization and take that sort of sustainability thinking and lifecycle thinking further and deeper into the organization. I also wanted to sort of try and demonstrate today that there isn't necessarily a trade-off between quality and the timeliness of the results. You can get good quality results based on a robust and good quality model and good underlying data, and deliver that in a sort of a time frame that's still suitable for decisions to be made based on this sort of setup. Finally, I wanted to just sort of reiterate that the way to do that is to hide some of the detail within a black box. So it's not a black box that can never be reopened, it's a black box that's controlled and maintained by your internal expert team, but it's one that is basically set up to constrain the decision-making world to those things that matter. What are those key inputs and parameters? What are those material issues that are relevant to decision makers so that they can actually go and address the right questions to get the answers that they need? And so I'd like to close on that note and then open the floor to questions. So I can see the first question coming in here is from Brian. He asks, setting up the Envision example for the concrete mix, are these predetermined or loaded in by the user based on experience, or both? I think what you're referring to there is the parameter settings that were the defaults within the tool, so the numbers that were there for concrete and steel, and I hope I've understood that correctly. Those, you do basically have the ability to set predefined parameters, and so you can have these based on reasonable numbers, based on what your internal experts think. You can also set things like minimum and maximum ranges. You can have pull-down menus, you can have sliders, you can have other things like that to basically try and help the user not to do anything too crazy, but to also give them a good default in case they don't know the answer themselves. There's also scope to add comments and documentation so that you can basically help them to find the right values. So I hope that answers the question. The next question is from Tony, who asks, will customers use lifecycle assessment information, or are environmental product declarations more relevant? And I think that's a really interesting question, and I think it depends a little bit on the type of product that you make. So if you make a sort of product that's mass-produced, then I think an environmental product declaration is the best thing for you typically, because you can basically do one lifecycle assessment, get that verified as an environmental product declaration, and then you can basically have that EPD available on your website and give that out to your customers just off the shelf, because you're producing that same product over and over and over again. If you're talking about something that's kind of bespoke, custom built for the customer, like a whole building or a whole pipe system or whatever it happens to be, then in that case, I think lifecycle assessment may make more sense because of the fact that you need to customize that to them. However, if there's a requirement for EPDs, like there is under the Infrastructure Sustainability Council's IS rating tool, or under the Green Building Council of Australia's Green Star tool, for example, in that case you have to have EPDs if you want your customers to be able to get the credits. So it just depends a little bit on the end use and also the type of product that you make. Ricky, what do you think?
Yeah, Jeff, from my perspective, I think the customers, they want to see both. So obviously the LCA will underpin the EPD. They like to, obviously they want to see, the contract requirements that we're getting through at the moment, as I mentioned, are clearly specifying an EPD. So that's essentially what they want, and their clients know that you have to go through that LCA process to get the EPD. So I think it also, from our road surfacing products, it gives the customer some assurance that there is, or some confidence in the product that we're providing, in that it's meeting a specification, and that's underpinned by an EPD and an LCA.
Thank you. We've got one final question coming in as well, and I think we better wrap it up there. So this question is, can the input of cement, gravel and sand and also reinforced steel be assessed based on lifecycle assessment data from a supplier? And so the answer to that is yes. Basically the data that goes into the Gabi and Gabi Envision tool, it can be either from a database, so we have a series of databases called the Gabi databases which are within the tool. There's also third-party databases like Oz LCA in Australia, there's a US lifecycle inventory database, there's the well-known EcoInvent database. All of that, any of that data can be used within the tool, or you can use your own information that's coming specifically from your supply chain. So if you're working with your steel supplier or your cement supplier, and you've got lifecycle assessment data from them, that can be integrated into the Gabi tool, and you can use that data, or you can use some mix of their data and Gabi data depending on what's available. But essentially there's usually databases available for you to start with, and that information helps you to kind of get started, and then you can kind of refine over time to get better and better information from your specific supply chain. Before we like to wrap up, I'm sort of proud to announce that Gabi is the Environmental Leader Product of the Year for 2017, and I think that is a great reflection of the hard work that's gone into the software over the last 25 years. And if you want to get in contact with any of us, we've provided the details on the previous screen. I just want to thank you all for your time today. Have a good day, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Thank you and goodbye.